Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hope you are having a great day. Today we're moving on to savory things, right? I'm going to do some meal prepping here, and what I got is I got lucky and scored one of these big. Daniel calls them a chub, a 5 pound thing of meat. Now, I don't know too many who meal prep. I do have one friend who was doing meal prep, and most people don't because I think they're intimidated by how hard it is. And it really isn't hard. There's a few books out on Amazon you can get. I looked through them. They look just okay. America's Test Kitchen has a good one, but it's kind of includes other things like preparing meals, and I'm not going to go into that here. I'm just going to show you how you can get started with doing some preps. So what I got going over here is something that's eventually going to become a whole lot of tacos. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to season them up because you know what? You know those little packages you get? I'm going to pull one of them out like this for tacos. You don't need that because once you look at the list and you see a whole paragraph, you don't need that. So you can throw those away. What we're going to do is make our own tacos and taste a lot better without all that crap and sodium in there. What I've got that I'm going to add, cayenne, I've got cumin, I've got Penzeys Arizona Dreaming, which I love. And if you know anything about, do you remember the Doritos taco flavored in the 70s? How they tried to bring that back, and they did, but it just doesn't quite taste like that flavoring. This kind of tastes like that flavoring. And they have, everything they have is pretty good. This is just, it says spices, cumin. They always say spices because they don't want to give away everything. But chipotle pepper is what makes that really good, fun flavor that has that kind of 1970s Doritos taco flavor. And then it's got a little bit of jalapeno and smoke flavoring. So this is really good. So you can use whatever it is you like. You can even use these if you wanted to, red pepper flake, but that's going to make it really hot. Good old ancho powder. That is really good. And if it isn't in those packets, it should be because this is really good. This offers some heat, not heat, but like some smokiness, if you will, as does this and this. Okay. You'll notice that I don't have any, give these a jug here. If you don't have one of these meat matchers, you got to get these. These beat anything. They're so much better than using a wooden spoon. Anyway, where was I going with this? I'm going to give that, you can use chili powder like you put in chili. That's perfectly fine. In fact, I forgot to grab some out, and I'll probably add some of that in as well. Now, since we have such a great deal amount of meat, you have to season accordingly. So I don't really have any recipe, so there will be no recipe posted for this. You want to salt it. And I'm putting on, that's a good size amount of kosher salt. Or you could use diamond salt if you have that. I think that might be a little thinner, not as coarse. You want to always remember to, I'm just going to use this, season with salt and pepper first. You get an idea of just kind of how much I put on it. Not a lot, but you need your basic seasoning just like you would to any other dish. I'm going to put on a good amount of this ancho. You want to see how much I'm putting on here? You could just do one pan. Cumin, oh no, I'm almost running out of cumin. I use cumin a lot. Cumin gives a really earthy flavor. It doesn't add any heat whatsoever. So if you're making this for kids or people who don't like a lot of spice, they're going to be fine with that. This is going to be for adults, and we like a little spice, so we're going to put just a little cayenne. Now the best way to do this is season as you go. What we're going to do, this is going to make, what I'm going to say is going to be about, I would say about maybe at least 25 packets, and packets that we're going to wrap in wax paper, and we're going to freeze and we're going to mark and put in our freezer. And that way, here's the thing about meal prepping that I don't see a lot in these books that you can get from Amazon. That way, you don't have to plan. You just do a bunch of them in mass, freeze them, label them, wrap them well so they don't freeze or burn, and you've got tacos for, depending how big your tribe of people is. My tribe is only 1 or 2, maybe 3 if Daniel's here. This would be enough tacos to last a good 6 months. And not just tacos, But meat for burrito filling, enchilada filling, or just nacho night. Some Saturday night, you're like, I don't want to make a dinner, I just want nacho night. You grab one of these packets out, throw them on the counter, throw it in the microwave. It's thawed and ready to go in 7 minutes. Throw it on your chips with cheese and your toppings. You got a meal. So I'm going to let this cook down. Now you could rinse this, since this is what did I do with that? This is what, 73.27. So that's 73% lean. Personally, I like really lean for myself. Like, I only really eat venison. But for the people I'm making this for,
we're not so picky.
Not so picky. You could also cook this all completely if you're worried about fat. Cook this all completely without seasoning it. Rinse it in a colander. Drain it. Put it back in the pans. Then season it. But with these guys, they don't care about the fat. So I'm going to cook this down. And if you want to stick around with me, I'll be right back when this is done cooking. And we're back again. I got the meat sizzling. Daniel wanted me to remind you of the seasonings that we actually used. I did go for the generic chili powder. Cumin, generic, cayenne, the pansies, the ancho. I think I got this ancho at our local Mexican grocery store. Powdered. You can get that if you have one in your neighborhood. Plain old black pepper and kosher salt. In the interim, while I was gone, this is all the nasty oil that you'll get out of something that's 73% lean, right? Isn't that nasty? So all I did was use this. I didn't do the colander, and Daniel did give me a hand because cast iron skillet is pretty darn heavy. Now the next thing I want to talk to you about is those crappy packets. In addition to having really old, stale seasonings, they also usually have some sort of thickener in, which is why the instructions always tell you to add water and then add the packet and let it simmer for a while. You don't need to do that. All they're doing is using cornstarch. So what I got here, for this amount of meat, I bet I put in a tablespoon. Now, if you're going to make it in mash, you're going to use more. If you're only going to make one of these, you would probably only need about 2 teaspoons. You just do it by ear to the thickness that you want. So what I'm going to do is add that water, just like you would if you were using the crab kind. Add that water. And you know what? They even have, I noticed this, somebody I knew who was kind of pretentious, he was using the organic style from her store seasoning packet. And I thought, why are you doing that? And then they're charging you double when you could just be doing this at home and it's the same thing, right? That's silly. Now what I'm going to do is, and this is like maybe a third a cup of water with my seasoning, and I'm going to go ahead and add this. And this is not exact science. This is however thick and juicy you want your, like I can tell these are looking a little dry, so I'm going to add a little bit more water. You can always add more water mixed with cornstarch if you end up getting it a little too thin. But we want it to have a little bit of that sauce, right? I'm giving it about another 2 tablespoons apiece. I'm going to let this cook, and it'll thicken up pretty quickly. Once it tightens up, we'll get back to you, and I'll show you what we're going to do next. We're back with the cornstarch. Let me show you what happened. So this is what we ended up with. I just killed the heat, and this is not grease. This is that nice, like, if you will, taco-y gravy. Only you know what's going into it, because all that went into it was cornstarch and water. So I think that makes a pretty palatable, nice gravy. And this will thicken a little bit before we can handle it. The next thing we're going to do, Daniel's going to help me, and I'm not going to film it because there's no point filming it. This, like I said, is going to make, what did I say, Daniel, around 20 packets probably?
I believe so, yes.
And each packet will make probably, like, say, 4 tacos if you like them a little. I like them a little skimpy with the meat and plentiful with the toppings. But that's up to you how full you want to make your little packets and how big your family is. So I'm going to put like probably, I would say a pile of meat about yay big in each one of these pieces of paper, wax paper that I use. And I'll just neatly make them into little packets and turn them upside down so they don't leak. And then I'll have them all packaged up, and I'll show you what it looks like at the end. We're back. As you can see, I almost filled up 2 of these Ziplocs with the wax paper. I meant to say, using the wax paper is a great idea because you don't really want to You want to really watch single-use plastic. I try to really not use it very often, or if I do, I'll take a piece of single-use plastic and I'll use it over and over again shamelessly just because I can't. I feel bad, right? But this is just wax paper, so you don't have to feel bad. It's been around since your great-grandma was around, right? It freezes well, and I think it protects better from freezer burn than the single-use plastic anyway. So I've only got a few more to bag up, and you can tell I'm using a 1/3 scoop because that works for me. If you've got a bigger family or you're just a big eater person, you might use a half of a cup as a scoop, or even a whole cup if you have a lot of people you want to feed. Or maybe you'll use a 1/3 like me, and you'll just maybe use more some days. Like if you were really hungry, you might be like, oh, I've had a really busy day today. I'm going to use 2 packs of meat, and I'm going to make blah, 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 which I'm going to talk about that too once I get this all stacked up. And, you know, if you have kids, this is something that's handy that they could make for themselves because all the work's done, right? All they have to do is heat it in the microwave and eat something, and I don't think that would be too much to ask a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old to do, since they won't be operating the stove, which I wouldn't want mine to be doing that when I wasn't around anyway.
And the process of making this would be great for working with kids too, because
sure.
Just me pulling out the wax paper sped Natalie up.
Yes, it did help me. Otherwise, this takes me a lot longer to do all by my lonely. So I forgot to mention a couple add-ins that you could do. I had some frozen tempeh, which is a vegetarian substitute for ground beef. You could do that. I've done that before. I used to be a vegetarian. I used to eat that a lot, and I did this all with tempeh. I didn't do that this time because, like I said, I got a deal on this meat, and I wanted to use this 73% lean meat. So these are full, and then what you're going to want to do is label them as such, right? When you prep, because here's the thing that a lot of these meal preppers don't talk about is they just talk about preparing your meals and doing sheet pan meals. I like having stuff already in the freezer done. So all I'm doing is taking it out and basically just giving it a little heat up and eating it. And we're going to do more of these in the future. And Daniel's going to do an episode of me actually at my deep freeze explaining a lot of the things that I do that freeze well like this. So you don't have to, literally, you've done all the cooking here. You have nothing to do once you get to this point. So you put your labels, a couple things on the freezing, okay? I would recommend getting a heavy-duty freezer-style bag. Now, when I say freezer-style bag, this is a gallon bag. You want to get the kind that's safe for the freezer. If you get the other kind, they're not heavy enough. If you're an absolutely no plastic person at all, that's fine too. You could store these in a long piece of whatever, a long glass sheet that has a lid that you can put in the deep freezer. I put these in my deep freeze, which is different than your refrigerator freezer. These tend to let air in because they constantly are in a slight, a process of defrosting your food just a little bit at a time and then freezing again, because that's what keeps ice formation out of there. I recommend, if you don't have, even if you have a small house, you can get a deep freeze. You can get them, I think I've seen them as small as maybe this size by this size, and can fit under a table in your kitchen. They're great because you have to defrost them. That's a bummer, but you never have to worry about freezer burn. And let me tell you, if you've eaten something with freezer burn, that sucks, right? Rosie, will you eat freezer burn food? She's not wagging her tail.
Oh, well, now she is.
That was a reluctant wag. That was like, maybe if you're going to throw it away, I'll eat it, Mom, but otherwise, count me out. So anyway, there we go. I'm going to chuck these. Well, actually, I'm giving one of these to Daniel. Then I'm going to chuck the other in my freezer, my deep freeze in the garage, and there you go. This made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 times 2 is
18.
18 series of meals. And on that, you can make so many things with this, not just tacos. Mexican lasagna, you can make that. Plenty of recipes for that online. You can make, you can take this meat and throw in an omelet. That's good. Have it like a Mexican style omelet. What else were we talking about? We were packaging these up.
Did we mention salads?
Taco salad, that's how I like to eat mine. Mexican, a Mexican flair, if you will, with sloppy Joe. What I would do to make that is take one of these out, let it thaw out on your counter, put it in a small skillet, and add a little bit of ketchup to it, maybe some chopped up pickles, and it's just another take on a sloppy joe. This is really versatile to have that in the freezer. So yeah, that's all we have for today. Have an excellent day. We're going to do more of these videos of how to prep in your freezer, specifically cooking stuff for your freezer in the future. And in a future video looking at my freezer. Don't judge me on having a lot of stuff in my freezer though. It's not the neatest place, but I do an okay job keeping it tidy. Have an excellent day wherever you're at. Do good, feel good, and we will talk to you next time.